Alright, so let's see what happens if we build up one of these boards using just hot air. So, solder paste on the front, and these larger devices I've been using solder paste and hot air, but got some small LEDs on there also. This is the tail end of a about 2.5 minute heating waveform that I do manually. So taking it up to 320 Celsius in 3 steps, and you can see as the solder melts, these parts just kind of, wiggle their way into place. It's very satisfying. It's basically minimizing surface tension, which it does by, matching the metal parts to the metal parts so that the solder takes a nice uniform shape. These bigger packages, like this 32 pin TQFP is pretty easy to line up correctly. The smaller piece to the right is a 24 pin QFN, and that's a little harder to place because the solder gets in the way of the pin visually, but you'll see it line itself up as usual when the solder reflows. So it just kind of scoots its way into place. And there's solder blobs on the side. Those are easy to take out. Just drag your soldering iron along. Now I've been assembling the back by hand on the first few boards I made. There's a total of 15 devices back here, and you can flux those up, bring them in with tweezers, use a soldering iron, and get those soldered pretty easily. But I decided to see what would happen if I tried to do the back of the board also with hot air. So definitely not being too careful with the soldering paste, just kind of slopping it down, making sure there's at least a little paste on the pads, but definitely not precise control over quantity of paste or exact placement. And then placing the components. So this is manual pick and place, right? This takes me about 10 minutes in real time. I'll speed it up 16x so you don't have to watch all of that, but it's a different kind of sort of meditative process of finding these things, figuring out where they go, placing them. And since I'm not soldering them by hand, since I'm going to use reflow, I'm not too worried about exactly how they're placed. So they're at slightly odd angles and so on. There's a crystal I'm going to put at the bottom. It's a 12 megahertz crystal. I sourced it after I'd already had the board made, and it's not the right footprint for this crystal. So you'll see, the crystal looks really big, and when it flows, it'll be astable. So here we're pretty deep into the heating cycle, and the solder's flowing, and you can see the parts just kind of wiggling their way into alignment. And most of them are in pretty good alignment to begin with, but the ones that aren't will sort of adjust themselves. I have a silicon heat-resistant pad underneath, and the air under there heats up and bubbles. So here's that crystal, and it's got kind of two positions it wants to be in, but it didn't really want to go in between those two. That's perfectly okay. It's making good solid contact, and the board worked great despite that. So I just kind of left that where it was, and then just reflow the parts on the right side of the board, and there you go. Whole lot faster than soldering by hand, but possibly not as much fun. And then here's just kind of a visual inspection of the board at the end, and you can see nice clean solder, not even a lot of flux to deal with, and good connections there. Everything's where it should be. Very little possibility of overheating components and so on. And so yeah, that's a different approach to building up these boards. There's another video that shows doing this manually with an iron, but this works pretty well too. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.